The hard part is determining the exact margin. We're going to go by 10. They cover the spread quite easily. Packers by 10, Broussard. That's the winner. I know we're technically supposed to go around the room on here, but I just gave America the winner, so I'm not sure what else is going to be said. But go ahead, Broussard.
Don't listen, America. He's way too down on the New Orleans Saints. This is going to be a shootout. All right, Jameis going to have a field day. So is Aaron Rodgers. Packers by 6 in a high-scoring matchup.
Wow, I'm going to go the other way there, Broussard. I'm going to say Saints by 3 and not a shootout. Jameis throws the ball around a lot, but Aaron Rodgers is harassed. Saints end up winning by 3.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm just happy.
That's an upset special.
You know, whoever wins or loses, it's all good. Everyone wins in my books. Scan the code, download the app, pick 6 games for your shot to win Terry's money. It's as easy as that. Enjoy your day of football, everyone. All right, we are back talking the GOAT, Tom Brady, this morning after The Athletic published their list of the greatest football players of all time. And coming in at number 1, to the surprise of nobody, I hope, the guy whose nickname, GOAT, literally stands for greatest of all time. Thomas Edward, Patrick Brady himself. It's his nickname. He's got to take number 1. Brady, followed by Jim Brown, Jerry Rice, Lawrence Taylor. You got Reggie White there, rounding it out. Broussard, let me start with you. Did they get this list right?
Well, look, Jenna, we all know Nick loves himself some Tom Brady, so he's not going to like this take. All right, and I am adamant that Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. I'll even allow greatest leader, most clutch player ever. All of that is fine.
I'll allow it.
But I've always pushed back on the notion that Brady's the greatest football player. I don't just automatically buy into the fact or to the myth or notion that the quarterback is the best player. All the positions have such different responsibilities, and all are dependent, including the quarterback. It is a dependent position just like all the rest. That, to me, the objective way, one of the most objective ways to look at this is what player was most dominant at his position. What player was head and shoulders above all the others to play his position? And to me, that's Jerry Rice. So I've got Jerry Rice as the greatest football player ever. He finished his career miles ahead of everyone else in receiving yards, almost 6,000 more than anybody else. Receiving touchdowns, he's got more touchdowns than any running back, any receiver in history by 30+. He's got more receptions than any other receiver. And here's the deal. He did it, Nick, and you notice in the era when they weren't throwing the football like they do now. Joe Montana had 1 season with Rice where he threw it 500 or more times. Steve Young never threw it 500 or more times, and Rice still rewrote the record books. 10-time All-Pro as well, and won 3 Super Bowls, so he's got the necessary winning pedigree that we all like. I'd have Lawrence Taylor number 2, changed the game as a linebacker, undefensible, 2 Super Bowls without a great quarterback. Here's the thing about Brady. Brady, you can't say he was head and shoulders above all the other great quarterbacks like you can about Rice and Lawrence Taylor. Brady is a 3-time All-Pro. That means that in his 21 seasons in the NFL, 19 if you take out the rookie year and the year he was injured, 19 seasons, only 3 times was he viewed as the best quarterback in the league. 3 times out of 19. So I believe it should be Rice, Lawrence Taylor, Jim Brown, who we know how dominant he was, and then Tom Brady as the top 4 players.
So, listen, here's the thing. The All-Pro thing's a little unfair in this regard. There's only 1 first-team All-Pro quarterback spot available. So it basically goes to whoever won MVP that year. Like Brady's 3 first-team All-Pros in the 3 years he won MVP. And so that's just a really tough metric. And so I think because of impact, it does have to be Brady. I think that if we're measuring impact, there's no question it's Brady. If we're measuring unstoppableness, I think it's Lawrence Taylor. And if we're measuring just, eye test, who's the best football player anyone's ever seen, it's actually probably Jim Brown. But I think the Athletics list in the top 5 wilds was quite good. I think this is the Mount Rushmore, and you can just argue about, you know, whose head gets on the mountain first.
Fair.
But it is, we're kind of debating art here. Like, what do you prefer? Because it is difficult to argue. Like, nobody would argue that a receiver can impact a game more than a quarterback. So, like, when Broussard has Jerry 1 and Brady 4, I think he, and I don't mean to speak for Chris, agrees with me. Brady's impact is greater than anyone else. But this is why, Wilds, and I have major issues with this list that we can get to later, but on this part of it, this is why when people say I'm a Tom Brady hater, I just say, look at my resume. I've been calling the guy the GOAT for 5, 6, 7 years. Like, what he's accomplished just up to this point, it used to be the measure was 4 Super Bowls. Brady's almost doubled it. And so when, like, Montana almost is like a casualty of Brady's greatness, because it was like Montana won 4, Bradshaw won 4, obviously. Now no one even talks about Joe Montana because 4 Super Bowls doesn't seem as impressive as it did Wilds my entire life.
So here's the question, because you've been, you know, I'm not going to say you made your career, but one of your sort of hallmarks of your take career is that counting the rings is a simplistic way to judge greatness.
Correct.
How so? Do you think that applies to Tom Brady as well? Could you see Tom Brady losing this spot to, let's say, Patrick Mahomes or somebody, you know, 40 years from now, if they only have 4 rings or 5 rings or 6 rings?
Yes.
Because I don't.
But I don't think you could lose it to someone with 2.
LeBron argument, but I think you need to get 8 rings, and I don't think anyone will ever get it.
So I don't think that at all. But I think, like, Peyton, like, so Brady's also going to have all the records. He's going to end up with the most touchdowns, most yards. He almost has all of them. Breeze has him nipped in a couple. Brady will pass him this year. But Peyton, like, here's the thing. Peyton Manning, eye test-wise, beats Brady in almost every metric. But Brady kept beating him in the playoffs. And Peyton only has 2 rings. If Peyton had 5 rings and Brady had 7, I'd probably say Peyton's better. But you mentioned Mahomes. Broussard, can I turn the car in a different direction for a moment? Because The Athletic, I feel like, and good for The Athletic, I subscribe. I don't use anyone else's login. I pay for it. It's great service. You guys do a great job. But I feel like they had their senior writers work on the top 10, and then they just had brought some interns in for numbers 11 through 100. Because I'm looking at this list, and I'm like, oh, who's on it? Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald, 24th. 24th. Still playing. It's good for Aaron Donald. J.J. Watt's 35th. Rob Gronkowski's 56th. All active players. And then I'm like, all right, what about, like, short careers? Gale Sayers. Gale Sayers, who had 2 outstanding years and 4 really good years total. He comes in at 53. Patrick Mahomes not on the list. How in the world is Patrick Mahomes not on the list? Someone make it make sense. You got Fran Tarkenton. Fran Tarkenton comes in at 95. How is Patrick Mahomes not one of the 100 greatest players ever? Someone explain to me, please.
I'll make it make sense. I'll make it make sense to you, Nick. He's only played 3 years. Or 4, but, you know, really 3 years. It's as simple as that. I remember when the NBA named its top 50 players of all time, 1997. Shaquille O'Neal was on that team, and a lot of people were like, yeah, he'll be on it, but that's pretty premature. All right, and that's the feeling. That's why Mahomes wasn't on there. Nick, if you notice the top 10, Brady's the only active player. There were only 4 active players in the top 50. So there clearly was a bias against active players. And with Mahomes being so young, I think that that's why he wasn't on the list. Let me hit something you said earlier, Nick, because it's big to me, the eye test. And eye test is obviously subjective. But when I think of football player, and this is why I've never viewed Brady as the best football player. When I think of football player, I feel like you've got to have the necessary amount of athleticism, speed, power, agility to be like a complete football player. And I know every position does different things, so nobody does it all. But hear me out on this. If you did a tryout and you didn't know how good any of the players were, and they had to do all the things that football players do, block, tackle, run, catch, all of that, there is no way you would come away thinking Tom Brady was the best football player. And I get it. Well, that's not required of him, okay? But I feel like I need to be able to see that you have the athleticism to at least theoretically be able to do some of these things. So to me, you know, I can't view him as the greatest football player.
So,
overall player, no.
I understand what you're saying. I vehemently disagree with you on the philosophically, but I totally understand your point. What you're basically asking is, what player, if you just cloned them and they had to play you had 22 of this guy as your 11 defensive starters and 11 offensive starters, would give you the best team ever? Like, he's got to play offensive line, he's got to play D tackle, he's got to play safety, and Brady's like 1/1,000,000th on that list. I understand that. But what he is asked to do, he has done at a higher level than anyone ever, and what he's asked to do is the most important position, you know, in the sport. So I have no beef with them ranking him #1. By your metric, I feel like he probably shouldn't be in the top 100. Like Brady Brady, let me see you go out for a pass. We saw him in the Super Bowl. Like, he can't do those things, but he's not asked to do those things. So I think a lot of people agree with you, Broussard, but that then leans really heavily towards the freak athlete guys. You know what I mean? The guys who played D-end in high school and then tight end in college, and they can do a bunch of things.
Sanders.
You know, right. It leans into those things. Or Dion would be on that list. I think Lawrence Taylor obviously be on that list. Or Jim Brown be on that list. Wilds hates this.
Right.
Yeah. Wilds hates it because all the quarterbacks get knocked off the list.
Broussard, hey, stay tuned for next segment. Broussard will give us a top 100 combine performers. Tony Mandarich coming in #1.
They don't block and tackle. They don't tackle in the combine, Wilds. They don't hit.
Goodness gracious.
All right.